Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and hello. Welcome to the Esports Awards Origins podcast. Today, I will be your host, Trevor Quickshot Henry, and today we get to interview one of the most talented people in broadcast. Somebody who has 10 plus titles under their belt and has traveled around the world to do broadcast commentary. It's somebody that I will get to learn a lot more about today, and his name, if I say this correctly, is Hyun. Hola. Did I say that correctly? And hello.
You did say that correct.
Yes. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for the intro. I think you've been way too kind on that one. And it's an honor for me even to be here with you with Quickshot, because I know that you are a legacy caster. You've done almost everything in terms of casting in the entire world, right?
I'm very fortunate. You're very kind. And I love the word legacy. It's your most polite way of saying I'm an old man. But I will take it. Hola, let's just quickly introduce you to Origins. It's called Origins because we want to get to know who Gene is, how you got involved in gaming, how you got involved in the industry, and how you got involved in all of these games that I have on my research. Now, we'll build up to that in just a second. Let's start with a simple one. How old were you when you started playing video games, and what is your earliest memory of it?
My earliest memory was probably when I was like 5 years old. And this is going to age myself, but it was in the Atari, the original one. And we were playing Pac-Man. And I remember my older sister, she would outscore me and she would do much better. So from the first minute when I was playing video games, things got very competitive.
I really love that. I really love that it is competitive. And if you're comfortable sharing, I hear an American accent. I believe you live in Singapore right now. So where does this come into play? Do you travel a lot as well when you were a kid?
I didn't travel so much growing up. It was just more of, I grew up in the States, right? And I'm Korean, but I'm Korean American, right? But I lived there my entire life, and this is why I have that accent. I can't really seem to get rid of it. But basically, as I graduated, I wanted to go international, and my career sent me to Korea, Japan, and then I finally in Singapore, and I've been living here throughout. So Singapore has welcomed me with open arms. I think if anything, they've been very diverse here, and so they've been very accepting of me as well. So Singapore has been a very comfortable place to live.
I love this. And again, it does allude to the introduction. Quite literally traveled around the world. Let's start to fill in some blanks here. So, born and raised in the US, 5 years old, you suck at Pac-Man from what I hear. And now we start expanding. Describe to me what your next journey is. Like, how do you progress through gaming? How does it fit in with your schooling as well?
Well, growing up, I'd always been a gamer, right? I think that we all had been at some point, right? But I think that in our time, and I think that we're kind of the same age, dare I say, Quickshot, but it was a situation where there was really no esports. Yes, there was the occasional tournament here and there, but there was never really like a structure to it. So for me, it was all about growing up. I wanted to be in sports. I wanted to be a sports caster, if anything. So, having some sort of esport level commentary, this was completely uncharted territory. But eventually, I ended up flying to Korea. I was there for vacation, and I happened to watch StarCraft 1 on TV, and they had some crazy esports, crazy games, and I was all about StarCraft at the time. So that was a huge moment for me. It's just like this enlightening experience.
Give me an age. How old are you roughly when this kind of sits in and you kind of open your eyes to what I imagine is something like the GSL back in OGN days?
Mm-hmm. So I was around 20. I'd been in college at the point. So just seeing some of these games, and you see some of those players, I'm sure you've seen them, where they're wearing like those silver trash bags. I don't know what they were. They're like rejected astronaut suits. I'm not entirely sure, but they had like sponsorship. It looked like part NASCAR, part gaming. It was absolutely crazy. But the games that we saw were amazing as well.
Listen, I'll say this as I'm comfortable. So I was born in 87. I got to grow up in the 90s, got to learn all about PCs and networking. And I got to see the early tournaments, especially in the early 2000s, like World Series of Video Games, Cyber Athlete Professional League, yada, yada, yada. I got introduced to the professional side, late 90s, early 2000s. You now see StarCraft. You mentioned that you were kind of interested in sports broadcasting. So how did you get involved in the esports industry? What was your first job? Did it go straight to broadcast?
No. I went the furthest way around. If there's anything about life, things are not linear, right? Especially my own life. I had been in banking for about 15 or so years, right? So going through that, I had always watched esports on the side. It was a huge passion of mine, something that I always loved to follow. But then there was an opportunity from one of a Singapore agency, and they were like, hey, we're doing a Dota tournament. We need casters. We will hire people on the spot, and we will teach you up. And I was like, hey, who can say no to that? So I signed up. I surprisingly did all right. I did survive that first cut. And then that's basically just like the first step into esports and casting for me.
I mean, that is wild. That's not a first, that's a first leap. Like, dude, you know what I mean? That's a jump. So did you relocate for this? Were you in Singapore already work-wise?
Yeah, I was actually in Singapore already.
Okay.
So everything was on the side. And so, yeah, it just happened to be there.
Honor of Kings, Dota 2, Free Fire, Valorant, StarCraft 2, Mobile Legends Bang Bang, Street Fighter, Apex Legends, PUBG, and Rainbow Six Siege. Those are some of the games that I have record for. How the hell do you get involved in so many games and over what time frame?
I mean, I've been casting since 2018. So I think that whenever the opportunities arose, I always tell people, hey, there's a game that they want to cast. Come find me. You just give me like a month's notice. I can pick up the game, right? And I think I've got it down to a bit of a science in terms of how I approach these games. I mean, you look at structure in terms of what they are, like MOBAs, FPS, they're all kind of different. But then all in all, the games are kind of similar, right? They're like competitive shooters, right? They have like team play, they have abilities and things that you need to do, obviously need to do a deeper dive on. But generally speaking, at the end of the day, the games are kind of structured. So you can kind of break it down to each little genre of game.
The thing that I love, and that actually makes this conversation quite challenging, is that you have this background in banking, you're a fan of esports, you are aware of the ecosystem. When you jump in headfirst into arguably one of the most competitive, challenging roles. And over the course of the next 8 years, add so many titles under your belt. So how did you develop your casting style? How did you find your voice? Because as I said, it was a giant leap of faith straight into Dota 2.
Yeah. It's kind of ridiculous that I say this, but I think that casting is kind of like dating. You know, when you go on a blind date with someone, it might be awkward, right? Who you're talking to, you don't really know. But for me, it's about making things just normal. Not to say that I'm like in the dating scene, just like, you know, talking to everybody or whatever. But I think that's the situation. Those skills have kind of crossed over, right? And being able to talk to anybody and to kind of develop a connection with the audience or, you know, the studio, whoever it is super key, right? And it's all about asking questions. It's making for very engaging conversations.
I mean, I really, really love the analogy. I also like preach in my tutoring and training in the legend scene that there's no such thing as right and wrong when it comes to commentary. There's liked and there's disliked because it's closer to an art form. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But with this approach, you are learning to adapt to different games. You're adding more and more to your repertoire. I can hear the excitement and the passion in your voice. How does your versatility help you commentate these games? And when does it expand outside of Singapore for you?
When did it expand outside? It was pretty much, I think, with Free Fire. Once basically COVID happened and there was a giant, you know, event. It was the World Series of Free Fire at the time. And it was happening in Singapore. And they were like, okay, we actually can't pull the original OGs in terms of the Free Fire casters. So we had to look local. So for me, it was just happened to be happenstance of just being in the right place at the right time. And I was able to kind of pull into that. But that opened doors to a lot more international events. And that was kind of where, hey, you can put me on the stage, global stage, international, whatever it is. And I'll be able to kind of ensure that the game gets properly, you know, produced, so to speak.
I mean, I really, really like that. And I can hear you're fairly humble in how you're telling this story because 2018 to 2020, 2021-ish, starting to do international events. Help our Western viewers who don't necessarily know what the Asian markets are like, what the Southeast Asian mobile games are like. Yeah. Paint a picture for me on just how big this industry is that a lot of your traditional PC and console players in the West just don't know about.
Yeah, so I think that the biggest piece of this is that the SEA and, you know, Asia, you know, like in India and China have kind of really pulled into this new growth of mobile gaming, right? I think that a lot of people don't have access to the desktops or the consoles or the fast broadbands and all of those things. So that the situation of the gaming platform has kind of evolved into the mobile gaming because like who doesn't have a mobile phone, right? So everyone has that opportunity to really just play those games. And yes, they might not have the best graphics and all of that, but you'd be quite surprised to see what you can play right now. Some of those mobile games are on par, very equal to what you're seeing on desktop and console. And having that sort of community and those games that is being built up in SEA especially, you're seeing just the rise of this mobile gaming scene that's happening here.
I really love that you talk about the Southeast Asian mobile gaming scene, because I had to pay a lot of respect to Mobile Legends Bang Bang. I was exposed to Honor of Kings. I knew about Honor of Kings. I understood it with my former job. But going to the Esports World Cup and seeing what MLBB has done, and seeing SEA in MLBB and the numbers, the viewers, the tournaments, it's wild. Help me understand, how much has that ecosystem changed in the 8 years that you've been doing this kind of like full time?
I mean, it's completely just been almost a religion for some of these people, right? They are so engrossed into the game. The numbers that you've already kind of alluded to already are just astronomical. Like, they're insane with the numbers that they pull. It's because literally everyone and their moms are playing these games. Everyone is so familiar with them. And so Mobile Legends especially has kind of done a great job of kind of bridging that gap, so to speak. I mean, Honor of Kings, we can talk about this, the rivalry that's always been there, but Honor of Kings kind of a little bit later into some of these markets. So, Moonton had taken advantage of that. Mobile Legends had definitely done quite well because of it. They definitely have those numbers. But in terms of a mobile esports, this is what you want to see, especially in the Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand. You're seeing just the rise of some of these games and these teams here.
I've got a question on your perspective. I think it is fair to say that the Western world, let's say Europe and America, maybe less so South America, but let's say Europe and America, the English-speaking world, doesn't know a lot about the mobile gaming space. I think there's a lot of countries in South America that are very clued up, Brazil in particular, with like PUBG Mobile, right? So do you think that the English, European Americans disrespect mobile or underestimate Asian mobile gamers?
I hate to say this, but both, right?
Okay.
There are both elements on this, because I do think that the future is still going to be mobile gaming. Right. Yeah. I think that the younger crowd, when they might not get that console that they want. They might not have access to a desktop. So the mobile phone will generally be like their first tech piece. Right. So it might be more natural, especially, in the West. So we'll see how that one plays out, because again, gaming, and especially when I was younger, it was more about what were your friends playing. Right? Yeah. Were they being competitive? And then that was kind of what brought that passion to continue playing that game. Because if you're playing a single player, yeah, you'll play it. But once you beat it, you move on. But in terms of a competitive game, it's a little bit of a different story. It really comes back to that. And I think that, the potential for that in the West is definitely there.
I want to stick on this topic a little bit, because with the comparison you're bringing in between mobile gaming and, let's say, PC or console titles, how does the job change? How does the commentary itself, let me be more specific. How do you adapt your style for a mobile first title like MLBB, or, thinking of I think MLBB and Honor of Kings and Free Fire, thank you, versus the likes of Apex, Rainbow Six, etc.?
To be honest, I don't really change. I think that the overall style and the standard are relatively the same. I will bring it regardless in terms of the passion and being able to kind of ensure that I'm, telling the proper stories, right? And highlighting the main points and things that are happening in the game. Those highlights are going to happen regardless of what game, what console, platform, anything. It's all about that game. And every game has that moment, that tipping point, if you will, where those explosions happen. And of course, as the caster, it is definitely your right and your privilege to ensure that you kind of get that story across.
How do you stay authentic keeping that story across? This is personally. How does Hauler keep his voice authentic?
So there's always a line whenever you're on broadcast or on some sort of stream, right? And you need to ensure that you don't really cross it with some crass joke or some, profanity or whatever it is. I like to skirt that line a bit, because that's who I am, right? In the sense of what I do in terms of how I am on broadcast and at home, I'm the same guy, right? So if you find me as an asshole, in person, I happen to be an asshole on stream, because that is who I am, right?
Okay, I apologize about laughing so much. There's a level of earnestness that's amazing, and I think you're probably uniquely positioned in terms of being Korean American, having traveled around a lot in Asia, having lived in Singapore. You do get exposed to the different cultures, so you know where that line is. How do you interact with your colleagues? Because I know for a fact that there's a lot of mobile game casters that don't have your bravery. Maybe confidence in terms of playing that one. So how do you balance that side of it?
So for me, I always like to push it a little bit, right? And as kind of, I was talking about it a little bit before, but even when I was working, my corporate day job, it was kind of like you want to build a rapport with someone, right? And so sometimes I use humor, and it might be a bit on the edge at times, and some people don't really like it as much. But I know that this is where I'm trying to break the ice a bit, right? And that has kind of carried over. Obviously, I've stepped on some toes. I've gotten in trouble for sure, especially in SEA as well. But it's a situation where, I think people know what they want when they bring me on stream, right? And when I'm part of an event, they know that, hey, I'm not going to go all out or anything like that, but I will make things fun and I will bring that value and that entertainment so that we can continue on. Because let's be honest, when we're casting 10, 12-hour days, sometimes it gets a little boring, right? And you need to spice it up a little bit. So that's what I'm here for, to just ensure that the show is at that top tier.
Give me some examples maybe. And again, helping our console and PC players understand some of the cultural differences between the titles. I'll give you an example. I know for a fact that some of the MOBA broadcasters tend to be very, very positive. Criticism is not hugely received well, especially broadcast talent. They don't have that same infrastructure that games like Counter-Strike or League of Legends or Dota do. When you're on those broadcasts and you criticize pro players, it's kind of understood. And it feels like the community and the broadcasts are not there. Is that fair to say? And what other examples can you think of?
Oh, 100%. That is definitely an issue, right? I think it's very easy when you're seeing the gameplay happen. You can point out 1,000 mistakes, right? But I think that the biggest piece is that it's you point one out and then you might, neg him 3 times or whatever. But that fourth piece, when you're bringing anything, you got to come up with something a little bit positive, right? And to kind of, to balance that out a little bit. Obviously, you can't just be talking about all the positive things and being very Pollyanna when they're losing and they're playing very poorly. You need to be very neutral in that regard. So it's something to be kind of, again, balancing the neutral part and the negativity as well as the positivity especially on a broadcast in this culture.
I mean, it makes a big difference. How much do the communities put pressure on you? We talked a lot about the games. I think you've shared a very insightful statement on how you approach the work, but you're still broadcasting to different games, right? And with the list that we've gone through, Dota, Free Fire, Valorant, how do you interact and engage with both those viewers and, let's say, the social media side of things as well?
So I think that there's again a little bit of a balance in this one, because sometimes I might make fun of or point out mistakes on one of their favorite players, and then they will let me have it in chat. But it's also a thing where I'm hey, I understand that I'm going to be nitpicking on some points, right? Because you have to provide value, you have to be calling things out when they're making obvious mistakes, right? So it's one of those things where, again, yes, I might be negative on that sense, but in the chats, if you're constantly harping in on and reading the chats as you're casting live, I think you're doing things wrong in general. But I think that it's something that you can kind of look upon, right? If you're building, hey, maybe I was a little overtly negative on this guy. Maybe I need to bring a little bit more positivity onto the cast, because there's nothing worse than a negative cast where you're just harping in on mistakes and just going into this toxic cesspool of a stream, so to speak.
You're not making a product that people want to watch. I mean, think about either television series, YouTube content creators. You want to make an engaging environment that people are kind of having fun watching, so you need to have that tone. You need to have that chemistry. If you were to make a guess of how many co-casters, co-analysts, how many people have you worked with in the last 8 years? Just give me a rough figure.
Oh my gosh.
Are we talking 20? Are we talking 50? Are we talking up to 100?
No, not 100. I mean, okay. Let's be honest. EWC definitely upped that number quite a bit with each one. I think that there was minimum 10 on those, but I would say closer to about 50, right? Not just with casting, co-casting, hosting, all that stuff. There's been a lot of transition, so to speak, and being able to kind of deal with some of those other employees has been quite fun.
The reason I ask that, up to 50, let's say, co-casters, people on camera across different languages, cultures, video games, platforms. How do you develop good chemistry with the people at your side?
That's the hardest thing, right? And I think that it comes actually to one of my strengths, right? Where I look at casting, and especially with somebody brand new, kind of like rally car driving, I know that this is going to be weird because you have that driver who's like the play-by-play, and then you have like the navigator who's like the co-caster or the color analyst, right? But both of these guys need to work together in a small period of time, and they need to be quick. They need to ensure that they're on the same page, or else they might die, right? I think even on stream, you might have that potential. So going into this one, it's about making the other person look good. You're two peas in a pod. You need to ensure that both of you guys are striving. It's not competitive. It's looked at as a conversation. We're having fun together. And that's the biggest piece to this, because I've seen casters that are looking to be competitive. They want to be out. They want to be smarter than you. They want to be, more analytical or whatever it is. Yeah. They take things very to that extreme, but it never goes well. So you need to ensure that you break down those walls as quickly as possible.
It's really, really important to call out any aspiring broadcasters or commentators, analysts. Yes, there's inherent competitiveness in the role. Mm. However, that doesn't mean you have to be competitive at the expense of teamwork and broadcast commentary and the product. There's limited seats, but a rising tide lifts all ships. It's kind of the vibe. Yeah. And outside of being aware of that and kind of integrating the team, what else separates good shoutcasters from great? And you can do analyst, you can do shoutcaster, whichever like direction you want to take it.
I think there needs to be. I've been like, it's like the same theme throughout in terms of just like having that balance, because you can have guys that are super hype and passionate, but they're not able to kind of last a 10-hour day because they've been hyping, or they're that same tone, that high, hype yelling throughout, right? And it's also to the viewer, it's kind of like, a little bit of white noise, and it kind of gets annoying, and you kind of drone out a bit. And then there's the other side where you're like, hey, you're too low. You're like a lecturer. You're incredibly smart. So you need to figure out what is that, that middle ground that really kind of makes you insightful. Are you hype when the moment calls for it? Are you able to kind of ensure that your co-casters are having a nice conversation and just being able to shine together? Because that's the biggest thing. Synergy is important, but bringing a great show where you have entertainment and you're bringing it along. Because let's be honest, anybody can talk about the game. Like, you could have the smartest guy, one of those pros that just like talk about like their thought process, but are you providing true value? Are you able to kind of tell the game is going on and being the true storyteller that the game needs?
Out of interest, how do you gauge that? Like, how is that something you measure? It's a really difficult question to answer, but pick a title, one that you've got the most experience with, and how do you gauge whether or not what you're doing on air is something that is providing value or giving viewers what they want?
I think the biggest thing is just tuning in, right? I know it's very cliche in that sense, but tune in and see exactly, like turn, like close your eyes. Don't even watch the game and listen to the conversation, right? See exactly, is the play-by-play, like, is he able to kind of map out the entire team fight? Are you able to understand things just with your eyes closed, not even watching the game? And then the analyst part, is he able to break things down where you're like, hey, that was very insightful in the sense of like, I'm learning. I'm understanding the game, those items, those abilities, all these pieces. Like, that is the true level, right, of being a good caster. And it's like being a good teacher almost, right? You have great teachers. You just know who they are because they had so much of a connection with you.
Yeah, but I think there's one thing that I'll challenge you on, right?
Sure.
I agree with everything you've said. And I think it's beautifully eloquent. But I think it requires quite a lot of self-confidence to be able to critique yourself. Because if you're tuning into what you're doing, if you're tuning in somebody else, you need to make these evaluations. One of the questions I have in my document is, what's one skill new commentators overlook? I'm going to answer this for you, and then I want to discuss it. How do you become self-critical? How do you watch back your VODs, or how do you tune in and listen and actually teach yourself that skill? Because I think when you get to a little bit more like our age, I believe you either have that or you don't. But I think there's a lot of younger people in the industry these days that haven't quite prioritized that or picked it up early enough.
It's completely right. And I think it's like that growth mindset where you have to, like, you might have thought it was the best one for you, but when you go back to the VODs, there are things that you do that is not 100% perfect. And I think that you have to kind of be hypercritical, do it in a positive way where you're not so demoralized and just kind of get diminished by it. But I think that if you look at things and you look at things objectively where you're trying to improve, what are those moments? Are there awkward pauses? Am I stumbling? Do I have crutch words? Do I have moments of just, what exactly am I talking about? Is it just complete gibberish? Like, you might have those moments, and you need to go back and to really do that self-assessment, to really kind of challenge yourself and to improve as a caster.
Wholeheartedly agree. You have my 100% signature under this idea, and also kind of defining what's good. You've got to have a bit of a goal, what you want to work towards. Whether you agree or disagree, whether the viewers agree or disagree, that's it. Never stops changing. You always have to evolve.
True.
We've covered a lot of ground in a very short space of time. We talked about introduction to gaming, talked about basically being involved in gaming up until early 20s, moving to Singapore, working a day job, getting involved in esports, relatively speaking, late in the industry, later in life. Yeah. I want you to now pound on your chest, and I want you to tell me some of your biggest and proudest accomplishments. I read off a ton of games. I have a few international events I'd like to talk to you about, but when you look back, what do you consider your 3 biggest achievements?
3 biggest achievements. Wow. Okay. I think both of the EWCs, being last year as well as the year before, I think being part of the Honor of Kings scene for both of them, as well as Free Fire for 2024, was a huge step up for me, right? Obviously, I'd done international casts before, but not to that level. I think Esports World Cup brought something that I had never seen before. It is turning into something quite spectacular, as you've been there as well, Quickshot. I think that this is a great opportunity, even moving forward. I think that those are the 2. But the third piece to kind of all of this was, I'm going to go back to, the first cast that I was on. Like, I will watch that one and just be like, oh, wow, I was bad. But the amount of growth that I've seen through myself and the way that I've gotten better has just been really, that step has put me in this position, right? Where I was able to do that. And that was a Dota 2 cast. I was stuck in a solo cast where I had to observe and to, play by play and color everything because it's a solo cast for about a 60-minute plus game. All right. I didn't know if I was able to do that. But once that happened, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. This is not quote unquote easy, but this is something that I can do. I had that true passion for it. So I think that those 3 in terms of my casting career have been the most beneficial for me.
Before we dive deeper into your reflections and some of these big moments, I've been fortunate enough to work in studios, normal broadcast esports studios. I've been fortunate enough to work in arenas all around the world, and some of the biggest, right? So I've got quite a lot of experience in that space. Help our viewers understand where you've worked, what type of places you've gone to, and like how big the crowds were, just so that we can then start diving a little bit deeper into like being there and on site. So first of all, explain to me the history. Where exactly have you worked in these different titles?
So Bangkok for Free Fire, Honor of Kings, Indonesia, as well as the Philippines, and obviously Riyadh as well. So those have been like the main highlights. Singapore has had their own events as well in terms of like World Series. But Singapore is a different ball game in that sense, right? But I think
how big? No, tell me how big. Are we talking a studio? Are we talking a theater? Are we talking a stadium? Just let me know.
I think the biggest ones are have been they've been like mainly through malls with Honor of Kings as of late. Those are the ones that have been like with the live audiences. Because EWC is a little bit of a different one because you have that stadium, but then the casters are kind of like off on the side, right? We're not really in the seats, so to speak. So it's a little bit of a different story in that sense. But I think in terms of a live audience, having that moment in Malaysia, Indonesia, as well as the Philippines for Honor of Kings has been my true highlights, because having those fans that are right there in your face when you're making those calls, and you can see them, they might be laughing or they might be jubilant with some of the things that are happening. Like, you can see the joy that esports brings to these people.
What's the most energizing or electric live moment with an audience that you've worked on or delivered?
The live one, I think that it would have to be EWC, the grand finals, last year with Honor of Kings. Going into that one, that was game 2, a moment where AGAL was going up against TT Global. It was 2 powerhouse teams, and these are like dynasties, right? These teams that have been around in the KPL, which is the China League of Honor of Kings. There's a lot of pressure in ensuring that you're calling the game correctly, because your voice is being heard throughout that stadium, and having those fans that are there. And I mean, not to say that they're rabid, but they're definitely close in terms of having that passion. I mean, they bring in the drums, they bring in the cheers, they bring everything that you want in terms of an esports, and to ensure that, hey, you're putting on a great show for both of these guys, because the teams are bringing it. You need to as well.
Do you feel like there's more pressure in front of audiences like that with the stakes of the tournament, whether you're looking in the faces of fans and their families, or you're looking at the two biggest names in the KPL who, just in Honor of Kings world, by the way, you cannot even begin to comprehend how good they are. This is bigger than like the Patriots and the Chiefs going head to head after like massive win streaks. Like they are massive. Okay. Does that pressure change? How does it impact you?
I mean, I want to be like, oh yeah, I'm so cool. Like pressure doesn't affect me, the grand final. But like, let's be honest, right? Once you get there and you see the crowd, you hear those drums, and you get goosebumps, right? Your hair rises. You get that feeling. You know instantly that this is the moment. This is the time where you need to step up. So having that opportunity is unlike anything. The adrenaline rush that you get, sometimes you might go a little too hype because you're just like feeling the crowd vibe, and you need to like calm down more than anything else. Just be cool, be focused, and understand that, hey, this game might come to like a marathon. It might go to that game 7. It might take some time. So you need to ensure that your energy's still there by the end.
Is there any, this is a bit of a challenging question and not everybody has an answer. So if you don't, it's fine. Are there any behind the scenes technical stories, preparation stories, behind the scenes stuff that might surprise a League of Legends viewer or somebody like that?
Yeah. I mean, there were some tech issues where I would say the screen went completely black for like 2 minutes. And so we had to cast.
That's not going to surprise the League of Legends either caster or viewer.
Okay.
Like, that's
perfect.
That's par for the course. Let's just put it that way. I mean, but if you watch shows in Europe, Kit Kat, have a break, have a Kit Kat, they sponsor the technical pauses. Yeah,
it makes sense, right? I mean, that happens. I mean, I think that was one of the funniest moments, because we're like, hey, I think he went in. I think he's about to get the kill. Like, we were just making stuff up for about 2 minutes, right? And then we ended up just talking about strategy again more than anything else. But it was that moment where the hype was about to happen, that tipping point, and then all of a sudden everything went black. The other big piece to this is that after a key final playoff series, and this team was definitely the favorite to win, but they lost it in the final game. And one of the coaches in the waiting room, the locker room, he actually just punches the wall. He leaves this giant crater in the wall. And so once that happened, I was like, okay, well, he's obviously he's feeling the pressure, but he was so passionate, and he just like, you could see that. And I mean, it was shown on stream, so people got to see it, but the after effects on that wall was actually sizable. It was tremendous. I
mean, I'm not surprised. And I think for anybody that's from the Counter-Strike scene, that doesn't sound like anything. This happens regularly in Counter-Strike. However, context really matters. The industry, the game, the community, just frankly speaking, this is going to sound so bad, but like this behavior in like Asian professional sports is just generally not accepted. It's so different. It's so different on the scale. It is. I can appreciate what you're talking about. Okay. Let's now start to move a little bit away, because we've kind of touched on so many different elements. I want to pick your brain as a professional quickly, and I want to challenge you. Try to list off every single game that you've worked on. I'm not challenging you. This is not to check, but like, just paint a picture in case I missed any. Let's go through the list.
All right. Dota 2. I did Wild Rift, Mobile Legends, Honor of Kings. I've done Golden Spatula, TFT. I've done Fall Guys, of all things, Street Fighter V. I've done PUBG. I've done Apex. I've done, there's like 3 or so more. I can't even think of them. I've done so many. But yeah, I've had my share. Help me out, brother.
I mean, listen, I think the only ones that's missed like Rainbow Six Siege, Valorant, Free Fire.
Free Fire, yes, correct.
The thing that I want to ask you about this is, with all these different titles, the core mechanics of broadcasting are the same. Building a story. Can you share a little tidbit on how it is you approach learning the game? What do you look for when you approach these different titles?
So for me, this is a great question, by the way. I want to say that I have it down to like a little bit of a science, right? In the sense of like, what type of genre of game is it? Is it a competitive shooter? Is it a MOBA? Is it just just like a battle royale? Like, what type of game is it? Because once you've kind of put it into a bucket, so to speak, the learning process becomes much easier, because, once you understand the genre, what you need to do, then the deeper dive of, do they have abilities? Do they have heroes? right? What are their moves? What are their play styles? And you kind of need to understand just kind of high level, like what are the roles of the players, right? As they pick these heroes as well. So that you've kind of broken it down into certain buckets. And then you obviously need to do the research of what all of the heroes do and all of that, but that's a whole nother story. But this is just like a high level approach to the game, right? And then once you're able to play the game, and I don't play all of the game to champion level. Like, let's be honest, that's crazy, right? I'm not a, just one game and die kind of guy. I need to play multiple games. But having that feel is like the most important thing, right?
Out of interest, which one is more challenging? I'll just put my cards out there. Battle Royale titles for me are very challenging. Getting to cover Free Fire, getting to cover PUBG Mobile at Esports World Cup and Apex. I appreciate and respect the game, but it's not for me. I'm not a massive fan of it. So I always struggle with that genre. Is there one that really kind of requires more effort?
I'm kind of on the fence on this one. I think Street Fighter was a tough one. Because it's one thing to be like, hey, he threw a fireball, I threw a dragon punch. But like the amount of knowledge, and there's a lot of legacy knowledge in these games. But I think that was a big one for me in terms of just learning the process of that. Because I was not a fighting game player, right? And so to understand what they needed to have done, that was a difficult one for me. But I think more recently, I think that crown has shifted in terms of the Golden Spatula, which is TFT. Because there is just so much memorization involved in that game, right? You have to know it. You can't just fake it on this one because you have to understand what all of the abilities do, all the items, like the heroes, the synergies, all of these things to really kind of let yourself not really sound stupid on stream.
It's really intense. The amount of knowledge is tough. And then on top of that, with specifically the EWC format, where it's like teams of 4 against teams of 4, completely different dynamic. It's actually very challenging, very challenging to cast.
Yes, agreed.
One last question on personal preference before we start to look ahead to the future. Which game or genre has been your absolute favorite to cover professionally?
I think MOBAs. I think that, I started as a Dota caster, a Dota 2-1, and then just where I'm at now in terms of Honor of Kings, I think that it's just in my lifeblood, right? I love the game. There's just so much creativity. There's so much, the game is a joy to watch. It's like watching high level football or basketball or whatever you want to, insert your sport here, because to me, it's an elegant game, right? There's a lot of thought process, even coming from the draft and then the execution and just, the synergy of the player is just really what makes this game shines. And being able to see that played at the highest level is just absolutely amazing.
I share the passion, especially when it does come to looking at like hero or champion or, whatever the synergies are. You've sustained a career across a lot of titles, a lot of verticals. You have elevated yourself to travel internationally as well as represent Asia and EWC. How do you keep yourself relevant?
I think another good question. I think being able to bring a certain standard, right? I think that every game that I dive into, I ensure that I'm 100% on board on this game. Right. And I bring a level of expertise, and not to say that I'm going to be the top tier guy. Again, I'm not a champion player, but I think that to be able to cast this in a way where things are very palatable for anybody that's just watching, right, and making it fun, where it's entertaining, is one of my key strengths. And to bring it along and to understand when those key moments are happening, so that everyone can feel the joy and the passion when the game is happening in that moment.
What is it that still keeps you excited every time you step onto a microphone?
I love the fact that there's no script. Everything is just ad-libbed, right? You're being as creative as you want. You're bringing whatever you want to the table in terms of your passion, your humor, whatever it is, everything will be shown, right? Especially when those days are long, like 10 to 12 hours. You're getting a little bit tired. You're just going to be like talking, and you're not really going to be thinking at times because you're like in that you're in brain rot mode or whatever it is. But it's a situation where having that moment to be able to tell this story is just one of my blessed moments of this, because you never really have that opportunity elsewhere to be as creative on the spot as you are in casting.
Yeah, and of course with different games and as well, you get to you get to express different types of feelings, right? Like the higher pace, high energy in a final circle of a battle royale, or looking at MOBAs, you get to break things down in picks and bans. Looking ahead, do you think there's ever a world that you just focus on one game?
I would love to do it. Right. To be honest, I see some of the guys that are, in League of Legends or in Dota. They've been there. Like, they only need one game. I would love to be there as well. Right. To have that opportunity where you're just the guy, right? And you're going into that. But for now, I love the learning process. So learning new games has been just like something that I'm very fascinated about. So that it's kind of helped me be jumping from game to game. But, to have that opportunity, it would be amazing to have just that one game, though.
Where do you see the rest of the esports scene in Asia, and maybe more specifically Southeast Asia, going in the next 5 to 10 years, if you were to make a prediction?
You're kind of already seeing the mobile gaming ecosystem, right? I don't think that you're going to completely get rid of PC and, console gaming. That will always be there in that sense. But I think that it's more of, my prediction will be more around the big three in Asia, in the sense of China, Korea, and Japan, where those markets have been largely PC console dominated, right? And I think in those markets, you're going to see a bigger pickup in mobile gaming there as well.
Okay, I agree with that. I'm intrigued to see what does end up happening, especially in some of the bigger English-speaking markets like America, Canada, European countries. I want to see what happens in the mobile space. When you look at how MLBB, I've got this wrong. It's probably Honor of Kings that was in the Bird's Nest in Beijing. I think it was Honor of Kings. You see them selling that out. Like, they had more people there than League of Legends did when it was there a few years ago. Like, guys, it's going to be a big deal. You're approaching a decade in professional esports. You've got more than 10 games under your belt. I want you to fast forward another decade. It's 2038. You have 20 years of experience under your belt. There are 2 questions to this. What are you doing in 2038? And how does the community look at you?
I think for the first one, I would just be in your shoes. I would just be literally hosting. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not entirely sure in terms of the 10 years. I would think that, I would be able to build a little bit of a legacy and kind of have a way where I can pass this knowledge on to somebody. Right. And I love casting. I think it's an art, as you were talking about, and to be able to spread the love of what casting has done for me and to other people that are, inspired and want to be a caster. I would love to help them out, right? I think that that's the biggest thing going into the next 10 years of just ensuring that, hey, I can't do this forever. I understand that, but it's being able to take those steps to pass this knowledge on to somebody or to teach or whatever it is to ensure that this casting thing doesn't go away. Because if you're looking at even sports commentary today with those professionals, they've been doing it forever. They've moved on. They've passed the torch to the other ones that have kind of, brought it to that next level, right? And all of those lessons that the original OGs have given to them has put them in a situation where we're constantly leveling up. So I want to see that. I want to continue to be that. I want to also coach as well and to just, continue on with this tradition here.
I love that. The second part of the question, first of all, thank you for the kind words, was also then, how do you want your legacy to be remembered? I'll start this because our interview began with you saying, if you think I'm an asshole, then you might think I'm an asshole. But I'll translate.
That's the takeaway of all the things that I said.
I'll try this. It's authenticity. Okay, that's kind of the corporate speak for what we're looking for here, or performance management. What else do you want people to look at when they think about Hola and they think about his legacy? He was happy, he was authentic, and
passionate, and just and a true proponent of esports, right? And it was able to kind of, hopefully, I might not take it to the next level, but I helped somebody get to the next level. And that's what I want to see, where I know that Asia is a place where there's a lot of untold stories here. There's a lot of hidden gems, right? And ensuring that they get a chance to shine so that even people in the West know who to fear, know that there's these players that are outside of like the faker, that are outside of these other people. Because let's be very honest, Asia is quite formidable in certain games, not so much in other ones, but it's time to find those people there because they do exist and they will hopefully, God willing, at least from my perspective, of ensuring that they bring Asia to the next level of esports as well.
Can I tell you something as well? Your immediate answer to a question that was about you, how do you want to be rich, was to elevate the game, the scene, the people around you. And you can just hear how much of a team player you are. It is to be celebrated. I want to say thank you. I will say one little note before we start to move towards wrapping this up is that if you are interested in anything Southeast Asia, the storyline that I would recommend you look into for the last 2 years is going to look at Vitality's female MLBB team. Go look at the 2024 run at EWC. Do not look at spoilers. And then once you've done that, go look up Not Ayanami. She's my favorite player because of that story. Regardless. Listen, Hola, just before I do my last round of questions, this is going to be an opportunity for you to tell our viewers how to find you, what projects you're working on, and what's coming up for the next few months in 2026.
All right, you can find me online. You can find me at Holler TV. That's through most social media, outlets. TikTok is Holler TV 1. Again, if you happen to like Honor of Kings, you want to talk about casting, whatever it is, please do give me a follow. Let's talk shop. I'm happy to kind of, talk about the art in any sort of way. I think that that's the biggest piece for that. But, going into this year, I think that Honor of Kings, you're going to be seeing the growth of, the scene even more, right? I mean, we're into about year 3 right now. Things are going to be really on the rise. There's a lot of good storylines that are coming into this one. So a lot of hype for Honor of Kings. And of course, if you like anything else, again, just feel free to give me a shout out at Holler TV.
That I really, really love. And also, I haven't mentioned it just yet, but your backdrop, mwah, fire. Okay, the very last set of questions is quick fire questions with Quickshot. The way that this works is I'm going to hit you with some significantly more intense questions in terms of timing and delivery. If you choose to reply in one word, one sentence, or one paragraph, I will adapt to you. Got it?
Okay, I'm ready.
What is the hardest game that you've ever had to work on?
Golden Spatula.
What was the favorite game you ever got to work on?
Honor of Kings.
Which game do you wish you could have cast?
League of Legends.
What has been your favorite team across every game, across every title, across every platform? One favorite team to cover.
T1.
Who is your favorite player to watch?
Faker.
What is your favorite region you've ever worked in?
Southeast Asia.
What is your favorite match or game that you remember casting?
Grand Finals, EWC, Honor of Kings, that game 2 was just phenomenal.
Dream event that you would love to cast?
Worlds.
One word that describes your commentary journey to this point.
Humorous.
Amazing word. One last question. If you could choose anybody from any esport anywhere in the world to be my next interview guest, who would you nominate and why?
This one is an easy one. I'm sorry, I'm going to go more than 2 words on this one, but it's Mara Aquino. She's the host of PKL, which is the Philippines Honor of Kings League. She's been part of the mainstay for the Honor of Kings international scene as well. But she's a host. She is one of the most impressive people that you will meet. She's very inspirational. She's incredibly positive and just everything that esports should be about. So I definitely recommend Mara Aquino.
Has made a note. I'll pass it on to the producers. Hola, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time. I know we've lightly touched on so many topics, but it is amazing to hear how much success you've been able to find in a relatively short space of time. And it's quite rare. There are a lot of people that I'm sure we both know who grind and grind and grind and don't get there. So congratulations. Thank you for taking the time. And I will hopefully see you at EWC.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see you there.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you so much, Quickshot. I appreciate the time.
It's not up to us, but we both like to be there. So give us a call, guys. We're both keen. All right. That's going to do it for today's episode of Origins, the Esports Awards podcast, where we speak to your favorite creators, pro players, broadcasters, professionals. We talk about their origins. I've been your host, Quickshot, and there is a playlist with a whole bunch of other guests, professionals, and amazing people that you should go watch right now. Until next time, goodbye.